Hello. Get my breath back. Thank you. So we have a lovely, diverse, large panel who know much more about NFTs than me. And we're going to be talking particularly about NFT adoption. As you've heard me quite a lot, I'm going to shut up. But if everyone can get their mics. Okay, so you have to hold your mic up very close and shout so everyone can hear you. If you just go down the line, kind of an opening question, can everyone introduce themselves and I guess talk a little bit about why NFTs are interesting to you as an individual, why they're interesting to your company?
Okay, so my name is Ryoma. I'm one of the co-founders for Maker's Place. We're our marketplace and community to help people discover and collect rare digital art. So for us, we're working with a lot of different creators. We tokenize their creations and help them protect it and monetize their work. So NFTs are a huge component for what we do and driving our business.
So I'm Skirmantas from DappRadar. DappRadar is the best Dapp tracking and analysis platform. Talking about NFTs, I think it's an opportunity. So either it's individual and for business. Individual, I think it's an opportunity, and also the freedom, expression of freedom. Kind of, I can transfer these assets, move them, sell, buy, and so on, which is not really possible in the current world. For the business, yeah, it's an opportunity of tracking this, figuring out what's real, what's not real, what's manipulated, and so on. That's what we do, yeah.
I'm Jeff, also known as Jiho. I'm a co-founder of Axie Infinity, a digital pet universe on Ethereum. I fell in love with NFTs right at the beginning through CryptoKitties. And yeah, I found the idea of actually being able to truly own a game asset and own a kind of piece of the game universe so fascinating. So I, basically dropped everything, moved to Vietnam, and yeah, here we are.
Thanks. I'm Michael. I'm co-founder of 3box, and I've been a long-time fan, supporter, builder in the Ethereum ecosystem. And so NFTs mean a lot to me because they're driving adoption and awareness of the space generally. At 3box, we're a peer-to-peer app development stack, so while not specifically on-chain or directly related to NFTs, we provide a lot of infrastructure to make better apps sort of surrounding these assets. For example, you could comment on an NFT and transfer it around, and the comments never leave it. So yeah, it's a big part of our sort of customer base and the entire ecosystem.
And I'm Gauthier, or Zup. I'm CEO and co-founder of nonfungible.com. And basically for us, NFTs are vehicles. They are the technical means that allow crazy things like blockchain gaming or art and all the things about true ownership. But from our point of view, NFTs are only vehicles that we track. Nonfungible.com is basically a data analysis platform. So we basically track every transfer, every trade, and we publish some analysis about it.
Okay, thanks everyone. We're talking about kind of NFT adoption. I guess it would be good to kind of go down the line and see where do you think we are at the present time, because next question is going to be future. But Gauthier, you've just released your report from nonfungible.com, so maybe a good place to start is you. I mean, how do you see the current level of kind of NFT adoption where we are now in start of 2020? Can you put some numbers around it for us?
Oh, yeah. Just for your information, we just published the NFT yearly report some minutes ago. And basically, we have identified that there are more than 100,000 active addresses, so basically more than 100,000 players using NFTs only in 2019. In terms of market, it's a market actually of more than 1.5 million. 1.5 million of USD traded in 2019. So what is extremely interesting about the NFT space in 2019 is that in terms of market in itself, people are not only purchasing or trading assets, they are now using it. The number of people, the community is definitely growing, but they are no more just flipping assets. They are now entering the time of using the assets.
Michael, do you want to continue? How do you see it for your particular sector, NFT adoption?
Yeah, sure. I still think we're really early in the cycle. There's still a lot of applications and platforms that are really surfacing the NFT for the NFT's sake, but I think like we'll kind of cross that chasm when they kind of fall into the background of a lot of the experiences that users have come to expect from apps they currently use. So, like we've heard about like various branded or sort of universe wallets where people are used to collecting things in, or it feels natural to them. And it's even cooler if like you actually own it. And so some of the value props come through. And so yeah, I still feel like we're way early in the adoption cycle. And so you're a part of something cool.
Yeah, it's definitely early. The space is quite small right now. I think that over time, application developers are going to get better at understanding what the actual benefits of incorporating NFTs into their ecosystem are, and get better at kind of communicating those benefits to users. Right now, there's a lot of experimentation going on with things like play to earn, collecting art. But the benefits are still not crystal clear to everyday people. So I think that it's on the developers really to kind of drive that, to do different experiments, see what resonates with different user groups.
On that point, because Axie NFTs are so important part of Axie, I mean, you've done a lot of experiments, probably more than any other game. Can you go a little bit into anything you've seen, any trends you've seen from the different experiments you've done?
Sure. So with Axie, something that we've recently done is actually incorporated MakerDAO's stablecoin DAI into our game, and players are actually able to earn this by competing against other players, climbing the leaderboard. And we find that this idea of actually being able to earn something like DAI, a stablecoin, by playing the game, is something that resonates with users. For example, in Venezuela, the average monthly wage is just around $120. Someone just calculated that you're able to actually earn around $1.50 an hour by playing Axie Infinity. So that's something that, what we've seen is a lot of like users from Indonesia, Venezuela actually attracted to this concept. So that's, I think an early experiment, and I do think that more things like that are going to be attempted over time.
Skirmantas, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but at that radar, you've actually been doing quite a lot of work with our staff. Some of whom, or the majority of them, didn't own NFTs. So do you want to talk a little bit about, we're a company in the blockchain space, and we're having to educate our kind of staff, some of them who haven't used NFTs. And how's that gone? Has that been an easy education system? Have people easily understood that? Because in a sense, that's going to be part of what's going to have to go on in the wider community, that people are going to have to be educated.
Yeah, especially would like to kind of talk about games. And so what you have achieved with Axie Infinity, like play to earn and all of that. So I think, like when we see, not especially kids like playing Axie Infinity, they get into economics, like learning how it works, all these assets. So I would say 10 years ahead, I have a wish like that my future, hopefully kids, play games which are based on crypto, tokenized, and they learn economics this way. Like not losing money and learning it hard time, but like actually playing games and learning this way. That's how I would see it. But obviously, we need to do lots of work to make it happen.
So for Maker's Place, I resonate the same thing. It's still pretty early. We deal with a lot of artists, and they tend to be non-technical, so it's sort of representative of what the mass market might be like. And so there's a lot of hesitancy from people wanting to get involved with anything related to blockchain. So, even like talking about terminology, we should be more aware of, not using blockchain as sort of the marketing material, right? Everyone already has this preconceived notion that blockchain is associated with crypto, it's associated with like Ether and Bitcoin, and how it's like super volatile and people are losing money. So, just even talking about that kind of stuff hurts your ability to kind of get to your core value of what your business is about. So, even on like talking about like fungibles or non-fungibles, a lot of people in the mass market aren't familiar with those terms. So like we try not to even talk about any of those kind of stuff just because it makes it harder for us to talk about our core values and what we're trying to promote. So like there's also technology problems that we need to fix. A lot of people don't have digital wallets, and when you start talking about it, they're like, oh, I have PayPal, is that good enough? Right? So, I mean, there's challenges like that. You know, there's questions about gas, you know, how do you get your money into your account? How do we simplify the kind of process? You know, once people get that kind of wallet set up, it's like they buy an NFT, the question becomes like, what is the utility of that? So there needs to be a lot more done in terms of what happens after you purchase the item, what kind of things you can do with it. So there's some people who are working in that space, but there needs to be a whole lot more before we kind of venture into the mass market.
Okay, so my kind of next question, and I've added a little bit to it from what you guys saw previously. So I always say, certainly in the game space, which is what I'm most familiar with, I really have no idea what's going to happen in the next year in blockchain. But in the next 10 years, I can't see how blockchain won't be a part of every game, which is a bit of a get out, I suppose, but that's definitely my vision thing. So if we kind of take a similar approach and think, you know, in 10 years' time, where do we see adoption of NFTs? Can you put a percentage on what you think that will be in terms of the general online population? So what percentage of people do you think will be interacting with NFTs? Presumably we don't call them NFTs then, so we have to get around that terminology, as you say. But in 10 years' time, where do you see adoption kind of rates?
Yeah,
with a percent on it, if you can.
10 years' time is 10 years' time is like, yeah, that's pretty far away. So, you know, in terms of like the mass market, you know, it could be hopefully around like 70%. I don't know. Like maybe that's a far stretch. But yeah, like I said, there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to happen before we get there. But you know, once we get there, it'd be great if like all the brands are adopting NFTs as like promotional methods. If all the content creators are able to use it as a way to monetize their works. You know, it'd be great if like all the kids they're growing up, they're playing with these collectibles instead of like their physical items. That'd be nice to see. So yeah, I mean,
70% is good. Sounds good.
Yeah, John, I won't give you a percentage. That's not going to happen.
Boo. You're the data man. Give me.
No, I'm thinking about like, again, getting back to gaming. I think that will be the first that's happening already, so that will just continue growing. I don't think everything needs to be tokenized, so I don't have examples now, but it might make sense that we will never reach the 100%. Yeah, but giving percentages next time.
So Bitcoin's been around for 10 years, or just around 10 years now. And I think penetrance for Bitcoin ownership is around 5 to 8%. So yeah, I think that in 10 years there will be more people who own NFTs who aren't even aware that they own NFTs. And we see big brands like Nike starting to take a very hard look at the concept. So yeah, I think my optimistic projection would be somewhere between 12 to 15%.
In 10 years' time, 12 to 15%. Good.
Yeah, I think for me, sort of separating general use cases for NFTs from games, I think it really is going to be gated by how integrated wallets can get into existing technology. So if you look at like the browser market and like some of the things going on there, there's like a lot of work to sort of just embed Ethereum wallets and other sorts of cryptocurrency wallets directly into your browser. So in that case, like I expect a lot of sites to use NFTs in similar ways they use other things today. So to me, it sort of depends on how deeply integrated these things can get into sort of our daily routines. But yeah, putting a number on it is hard. Let's say 30%.
I'm convinced that for the next few years, the gaming industry will continue to drive the growth of the NFT ecosystem. But we think that there are some really interesting use cases in terms of institutional registration, like, for example, real estate, IDs, degrees for developing countries. And we really think that in the next 10 years, I'd say, we'll see really interesting things happening with NFTs in the developing countries through NFTs. So basically, we'll move from like maybe funny use cases to really official use cases for maybe governments. I really think there's a thing with that in the next 10 years.
Thank you, everyone. So we have a question from Josh Shupak. He says, how long do you think the adoption cycle will take to settle in to users before people will feel comfortable with NFTs and using them regularly? I just have to answer that one because I haven't got time, unfortunately, to pass it on. I think it is a good question. I kind of think we'll probably stop using the term NFT. I think that is a specific kind of use case that we have come to over the last kind of couple of years. I think if we're stuck with NFTs, then we're probably like 5% adoption. I think if we just start treating these things as digital goods, and we're not worrying about private keys, that's when I'm a bit more bullish than you guys. I think we're like 100%. I think anyone who's online is going to be using NFTs. They're not going to be NFTs. They're going to be digital goods with some sort of ownership rights.